Have you ever found an infamous criminal while doing family history or genealogy work? Let me know in the comments if you have, because those stories are always fun to read. And I've got an update on finding mafia in mia familia. This was really, really unexpected. A year ago, I had posted Agostino Catone, who is distantly related, a fourth cugino to mio bisnonno, Pietro Randazzo, so he's related distantly to my great-grandfather. And it was I believe it was a draft record. They had immigrated like mia familia, but they didn't go to Brooklyn. So a year later, after posting this in my Carini group, somebody recognizes the name, and he says he believes that this Agostino Catone is his great-great-grandfather's brother. So this is really cool. That's one of the really great parts about posting on a Facebook group. People will then join and see and recognize names, and then we can connect. So what's really interesting about this is he says that he remembers, and he's got a death certificate, that his great-great-grandfather, Vito Catone, died by a gunshot wound to the head. So here is the actual death certificate. Now I knew he died in 1915. I didn't know how, and he had the death certificate. So he says, I think, this family story goes, that he may have been connected. So I know what you're thinking, Mark, they're Sicilian, of course they're mafia, and if you do, then shame on you, but I get it. I definitely get it. So I start digging in, and I was able to find some really, really cool information. And before I get into the actual document, it ties into our old friend Vito LaDuca, who I already did a video about, and I'll put it in the description. So if you've missed that, you can go back and get a lot more detail about Vito's life and death in that video. All right, so as I mentioned, I started with this post right here, and it's Agostino Catone. It's a World War II draft record, and you can see I did this just about a year ago. So what I started to do, of course, was I was this guy saying, hey, I think his brother Vito, my great-great-grandfather, I think he was mafia. I think so.
Like the mafia?
Yeah, like the mafia.
So I start looking, and I already had Vito on my tree, of course, and you can see he is a fourth cugino. I didn't have this picture, though. So I start going through the documents, and I have this 1902 Ellis Island record. I actually use this. This is, you can't remember all the names, but I see this, and I notice right away. Now, of course, there's a Vito Catone here, Carini. You can see right there, Carini. And he's going to see Vito LaDuca. Now, this is actually the same, and I looked, there's Vito LaDuca also here. And then I see up here, Vito LaDuca, again, a few people going to see Vito LaDuca. And then it dawns on me, Carini, Pasalaca. It dawns on me, this is the document I used in the actual video with Vito LaDuca, because I couldn't find the original document I was talking about. Like 10 people were going to see him. And that's how I found out about Vito LaDuca being in the Morello gang. So right down here, we do have Vito Catone, Giovanni Fanazzo. So I'm thinking right away, cousin of Vito LaDuca, they're both cugini? This guy's probably right. He's probably right that his great-great-grandfather, Vito Catone, right, probably connected because Vito LaDuca. Now, for those who have watched the previous video, our friend Vito LaDuca was in the Morello gang. The Morello gang was ran by Giuseppe Morello, who was from Corleone, Sicilia.
Corleone.
And that family eventually became the Genovese and then the Gambino crime family. But I'm not going to go into much, I can't go into much more detail there, but it looks like he's, he was right that Vito Catone as well as Vito LaDuca were in the Morello gang. Okay?
Capisci, paesano? Capisci, paesano?
Oh, capisci.
Okay, and as I mentioned, I knew that he had died in 1915, but as you see here, Vito Catone, and it gives the death date here,
Doesn't tell me how he died. So he had posted this death certificate, and it all lines up with the right date, April 11th. We have Vito Catone, and there we see homicidal gunshot wound to the head. So everything's lining up. I know it's the right guy, and you can see here, Augustino Catone is, his brother. He is the informant. So I let him know. I am, hey, it looks like you're probably right. He's connected to Vito LaDuca. So I got to find out more information, and boy, did I get it. So hey, hold on to your butts.
Hold on to your butts.
This is a wild adventure, and I don't have nearly as much information as I should have, but I got some really good stuff here. This is awesome. This is from January of 1904, and it's Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This is pretty cool. This is a wild ride here. I know it's a little difficult to read, so bear with me, and I know it's difficult to understand with me, because I am from Long Island.
Why do you think I have this outrageous accent, you...
Coiners run down after long chase. Whoa! So this is it. I'm a little conflicted here that they wrote 3 Italians and not Sicilians. I mean, given the way the type of people this part of me are familiar is, I don't know. I'm torn. But they're supposed to be reporting accurately, and so 3 Italians when it's actually 3 Sicilians, definitely 2 Sicilians. All right, but I can't get wound up on that. 3 Italians arrested in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania by Secret Service agents. And so those who aren't familiar, coiners, I guess, was a phrase for counterfeiters back in 1904. So after a year's hunt, Chief Wilkie of the Secret Service Bureau has succeeded in running down 3 Italians who have been persistently placing in circulation $5 bills on the Iron National Bank of Norristown, New Jersey. The arrests were made in Pittsburgh yesterday after a desperate encounter, and that's true. That's in which one was probably fatally injured and another seriously hurt. Pittsburgh detectives assisted the Secret Service operative in making the arrest. Vito Catone. Now, I did a search and I couldn't get rid of the yellow highlight. That's not from me. That's from newspapers.com. So we have Vito Catone, Antonio Vite, and Vito LaDuca. I knew he would. This is now the evidence, the information we need to say without a doubt he was more than likely. Well, I think it's pretty clear. That's what the Morello gang, part of what they did with extortion and kidnappings and whatnot, but they also did counterfeiting. So here, this arrest shows, and I'll go through more, he was part of the Morello gang. He was certainly acting with a member of the Morello gang, Vito LaDuca. The men under arrest, and they have been traced from New York to San Francisco and to many cities in the South. Operative Walsh followed them to Pittsburgh. Detective Richard Kelly, now that's a name right out of the movies for a cop. Edward Barry of the police of the Pittsburgh Detective Force aided him in making the captures. The trio were located in a Negro settlement. It is 1904. In the heart of Pittsburgh by Detective Kelly. When placed under arrest, all made desperate flights. And Catone, the man of the hour here, attempted to stab Kelly with a stiletto. Whoa! Holy wow! All right, it keeps getting better. The two grappled and in the fight rolled down a long flight of stairs. A little bit of comic relief there. Vito succeeded in throwing Kelly and was trying to cut his throat when the detective knocked the weapon from his hand and shot him in the left side. It's a spoiler. We know he dies from a gunshot wound in the head 11 years later. Antonio Vitae escaped from Detective Barry and ran into the Baltimore and Ohio railroad yards. A passing train detained the pursuing officer for a time, but a yard engine standing near was pressed into service, and Vitae ran a half a mile from the scene of his first capture. A brick thrown I love this story. A brick thrown by Detective Barry brought him to the ground. Whoa. Vito tries to slit one of them, the Kelly's throat, and then is shot. And Detective Barry threw a brick at the other one. Vito, who may not, and brought him to the ground. Vito, who may not live, was taken to the hospital and today locked up in the Allegheny County Jail. There is a awesome follow-up to this, being taken to the hospital. I'll get to next. When officers searched on the third man, Vito LaDuca, was found in their trunks a large number of counterfeit bills. And when the prisoners were searched, a number of the fraudulent bills and weapons were found on them. So they were caught red-handed. The money is made somewhere in the East, with the Morello gang. And the capture of the makers is expected any day. Chief Wilkie refuses to discuss that part of the case, however. Wow. Holy crap. That's not all I found. So again, this is definite proof that Vito Catone was working with Vito LaDuca, known gangster with the Morello gang. But it gets even wilder. Look at that headline. Counterfeiter tries to murder his nurse. Again, like I said, we're going to find bad people in, Nostra Familia. So, this is one of them. Counterfeiter tries to murder his nurse. Uses knife he took from his dinner tray. It sounds like the part of a movie. So this is Pittsburgh, January 22nd, 1904. Vito Catone, the alleged counterfeiter who was shot in the back by Detective Richard Kelly while resisting arrest Saturday, was taken to the Central Police Station this morning after an attempt to kill his nurse at the Mercy Hospital. Holy crap. When his dinner was taken to him yesterday, he slipped the knife from the tray and concealed it under the mattress of his bed. He used this weapon upon his attendant. 4 men were required to overpower him. Now you understand. Well, gee, to stop this guy, it takes at least 4 men or a gunshot to the head. 4 men were required to overpower him. The police have found 11 counterfeit bills passed by the gang. Kind of a non sequitur there. Just, I think it's a different paragraph. Now, I tried to get more information about this. There had to be. I'm going to have to do further research because this is wild. There's got to be more information. So, unfortunately, the only other information I was able to get, the only other newspaper article I could get on was this. And so you see here, Taylor's Black Hand letter. Now, Black Hand or a mano negra was one of the initial names for the mafia, or La Cosa Nostra, or the mob. So the Morello gang was certainly would have been described as a mano negra, or in English, of course, the Black Hand. So this is actually over a year later from what I just read. So this is 1905, August of 1905. So Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, again, Vito LaDuca, who is being sought by the police of New York City for the kidnapping of the Menino boy in Brooklyn. That's something that was reported in my last video, is well known to the police and Secret Service officers here. He occupied a cell in the Allegheny County Jail several weeks last year. His measurements and pictures were taken by the Secret Service officials, because your measurements are really important in a case like that. In January of last year, 3 Italians, it was Sicilians, all right, 3 Italians were arrested for the swindling. The men gave the names of Altadonia. I'm betting that this is actually Vito Altadonna, which I have more than a few in Mia Familia. Vito Altadonna, Vito Cotton. Oh, trying to make it less ethnic. And Vito LaDuca, the last being the man for whom the New York police are looking. At the preliminary hearing before Commissioner Lindsay, LaDuca was discharged for lack of evidence to hold him. It's because the Menino boy told a different story. He was coached. He remained in the city for several days, but disappeared before the trial of the other 2. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't find any more articles about this. So, other than what's in my previous video. So what's interesting is that Vito Catone, his job here, he's listed as a huckster. I was under the impression that a huckster was a scammer, but apparently it's just someone who sells things door to door. So that was his kind of his cover. Obviously, what he was doing was, working for the Morello gang, and he was a criminal. So it really is no big surprise that he wound up with a gunshot to the head. It happened in Toledo, Ohio, of all places. So I believe that's where, yes, this is where the killing was done. And again, you can see here, his brother, Augustino Catone, was the one who was the informant. So as bad a dude as this was, as much grief as he probably brought upon his family, his brother had to be the informant and let them know. Maybe, I don't know, maybe he was the one that actually found them. So way to pay your family back after a lifelong criminal career there. Vito Catone. What's really unfortunate is that even though he was murdered, he was shot in the head in Toledo, newspapers.com did not have anything available regarding this murder. So I'm going to continue looking into this because I'm sure there's still more information to find. Someone must have reported in one of the papers there this obvious mob hit. And when I find it, and I probably will, I will post a follow-up video to that. So that's the story of Vito Catone. What a lot. I mean, that is some wild stuff. Trying to slit a cop's throat, trying to kill a nurse, and then winds up a number of years later with a gunshot wound to the head. So this was a wild story, and it confirms the what this Gambino had mentioned, that he thinks that his great-great-grandfather was involved with the mafia, and that's why he was shot in the head. And so I was able to confirm it, which was really, really cool. So if you have a story like that, or if you found an infamous criminal in your family history while you're doing family history work, let me know in the comments. I love to see historical reports like that. Really, really interesting stuff. So that's going to do it for this video. I appreciate everyone watching, and you know what to do now.
Now go home and get your fucking shine box.